Wow, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2016 American Alliance of Museums annual meeting in MuseumExpo. 6,000 museum professionals from across the country and around the world have gathered here in Washington, D.C. this week to talk about museums and the themes of power, influence, and responsibility. About 1,500 of you are attending for the first time. We are so glad that you're here. Welcome. And at least one person, probably more, one person that I know of is attending their 40th AAM annual meeting. We're also pleased to welcome the largest student attendance on record, plus 70 fellows from diverse backgrounds, including 20 different countries. Welcome. Today you join an incredible community of colleagues from an extraordinary array of institutions. We are historic sites, we are natural history museums, children's museums, and presidential libraries. We are science and technology centers, living collections, and art museums. We are educational institutions whose research, programming, and outreach efforts provide life-changing experiences for young and old alike. We preserve culture, history, and science, and enrich the quality of life and learning in our communities. We are economic engines of the cities we call home, contributing a combined $21 billion to our local economies. Yet this only scratches the surface of the power, influence, and responsibilities that we as museums have within our grasp. The breadth of our field and the contributions we make to enrich our world represent an enormous opportunity for the future of museums. But first, I want to recognize those who laid the foundation upon which we build today. As we begin this Memorial Day weekend, we are surrounded by great monuments and memorials: Arlington National Cemetery, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, and the World War II Memorial among them. They remind us of the tremendous sacrifices military men, women, and their families make on our country's behalf. When they are called, they serve. And sometimes these soldiers do more than defend and rescue lives. They also rescue a bit of history and culture, the spirit of who we are. During World War II, among other atrocities, Europe's most prestigious museums and private collections were plundered, targeted for destruction. The Monuments Men, actually a group of 345 men and women from the US and 13 other countries, had other plans. This group, known officially as the US Army's Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives Section, was responsible for rescuing art during the war. We begin our meeting today by honoring these veterans. We will soon hear from Robert Edsel about his important work to uncover the stories of these soldiers. Many of their stories are intertwined with museums and with AAM itself. 3 of these veterans served as board presidents of AAM. Their mission was and continues to be important to everyone in this room. The world's struggle to protect our cultural heritage is as urgent today as it has ever been. Together, we have the privilege and the responsibility to push our communities and partners to look at the world from new and different vantage points. Some of you know I'm a private pilot. I have a poster in my office that quotes Leonardo da Vinci as saying, "When once you have tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return." It's true, taking flight is truly awesome. But while romantic notions about soaring above the earth abound, flying is pretty serious business. The endeavor holds a fair amount of risk, so lots of preparation is required, training, and lots of it. Learning about the science of flight, understanding the mechanics of the aircraft, comprehending the separate vocabulary used to communicate with air traffic control on the radio. As I began my term, almost exactly 1 year ago, as the Alliance's new president and CEO, it felt a bit like a takeoff. I was excited, but also a bit nervous. My flight instructor once told me that if I ever got to the point where I wasn't at least a little bit nervous as I began a new flight, then I'd probably gotten too comfortable. I was in trouble. So as I took flight in my new role, I was elated by this incredible opportunity to represent the important and inspiring field of museums. But I was also aware of the major challenges facing our museums in this rapidly changing world. I wanted for AAM to not only continue on our charted path, but also to chart a bold new course that would help, in partnership with so many of you, to lead the field forward. And so I set out on a listening tour. My travels have acted as my mobile classroom. I've met with people around the corner from where we are right now and around the world in places such as Argentina and Korea. I've made more than 100 museum visits this year, represented AAM at a dozen museum conferences, and talked to hundreds of museum professionals in formal listening sessions, meetings, and informal discussions, and even a few tweet chats. Still, I wanted to dig even deeper, so I started doing some job shadowing. We're calling it Faces from the Field. I spent a day with the new director of operations at the San Diego Zoo and her staff, and did everything from selling tickets to feeding a seal during one of our public education programs. I spent time with the incredible director of a living history museum here nearby in Maryland, Stepping Stone Farm Museum. That museum has an annual budget of about $300,000 a year, and the executive director truly does everything, including feeding the chickens. I spent the afternoon with the head of collections at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, who after 30 years truly knows where every single one of their 90,000 objects is at any given point. The people I shadowed are knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and simply amazing. They have given me the opportunity to learn more about what museum professionals do each day through a most unique lens. You devote your lives and passion to the field, to preserve our history and culture, and to improve our communities. You do critical, sometimes thankless work, and I thank you for everything that you do. I thank you also for engaging with me and with AAM over the past year. Thank you especially for your candor about how we might improve, and for sharing with me the tremendous opportunities that you see for AAM and for our field. We have tried to listen well, and I hope you will recognize some of your input in our new strategic plan. That new plan is a bold set of goals and priorities that build on the success of our recent efforts and cast a dynamic new strategic vision for how we might best serve the field in the years to come. Building on a strong foundation, we now turn our attention to some of the priorities you told us were most important to the future of the field, such as thought leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and financial sustainability. As mother to an active and wonderfully curious 3-year-old, I think about the future a lot. I wonder how her world will look, and I imagine the many ways that she will engage with it. From our listening sessions, I know that you want AAM to help imagine and shape the future as well, through our Center for the Future of Museums and in everything that we do. Your insights led us to articulate a new vision that sees a world informed and enriched by thriving museums. Based on your feedback about AAM's work over the last few years, we're doubling down on our mission to champion museums and nurture excellence in partnership with our members and allies. Although there are many vital issues facing our field and deserving of our attention, we heard that we need to focus in order to help facilitate true change and progress. Based on those conversations we've had with you, we've chosen 3 areas on which AAM will focus over the next few years. 1, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of museum life. 2, the expanding role of museums in a changing pre-K through 12 ecosystem of education. And 3, changing business models for museums' financial sustainability. AAM will focus on these areas as we strengthen our influence and advocacy and as we deepen our excellence resources. We will explore the most important issues in museums through a global lens and expand the ways that we collect and share thought leadership in our field. In all of these areas, we will seek to enhance and ease your access to a deep library of resources so that AAM can be your go-to source for inspiration, for information, and for support. Our plan is a thoughtful and substantive one with lots of interrelated parts that you can learn more about on our website. There will also be numerous opportunities this weekend and in the coming weeks and months to engage with the plan and to help us imagine and shape the future. Today, I'm going to talk a little about our 3 focus areas. The first way that we will imagine and help shape the future is by really embracing what it means to be diverse and inclusive. AAM board member and president and founder of the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago, Carlos Tortolero, wrote, "All of the world's problems pale in comparison to the human problem of discriminating against people because of cultural and racial differences. If we as humans would truly treat each other in an equitable fashion, there isn't any challenge facing our species that we could not overcome." Our field has arrived at a pivotal point in what's been a long conversation about diversity and inclusion. You can hear and feel the changes our society is experiencing as they're happening and the resultant angst among some. To be sure, diversity and inclusion isn't just about better hiring practices or strengthening our economic futures by attracting more audiences through our doors. Those things are important, but diversity and inclusion is about so much more. It's about helping to create a more informed society that recognizes and celebrates all of our differences. It's about living peacefully together with our brothers and sisters from all backgrounds. It's about national and certainly individual security. How will history judge our efforts, both as individuals and as museums? Will we be urgent and proactive players to correct our society's inequities? Will we work to understand and deconstruct the systemic biases built into how our field operates? Or will we passively shake our heads, wring our hands, and essentially reinforce what's been? At this conference last year, Dr. Janetta Cole said, "Museums can and must be of social value by not only inspiring, but creating change around one of the most critical issues of our time, the issue of diversity." To borrow one of her words, Dr. Cole is one of my sheroes. Her address was a call to action that AAM takes seriously. AAM itself is not as diverse and has not always been as racially just as we'd like. The board and I recognize that, which is why we are committed to diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion in our operations, standards and policies, and in the programs that we deliver to you. Indeed, it will take time and perseverance to challenge assumptions and ingrained privileges. It will take all of us working together from our different perspectives and positions in this rich field. But I don't think diversity and inclusion is about fixing or solving or being done. I think it's about transforming and improving and developing. It's a journey of discovery. That's what museums are all about. Another way we will imagine and shape the future is by embracing and expanding museums' role in the evolving pre-K through 12 education system. Museums spend more than $2 billion a year on education. The typical museum devotes 3/4 of its education budget specifically to K-12 students, and museums receive more than 55 million visits every year from students in school groups. Museums have created educational programs in every subject tailored to the needs of state and local curriculum standards. I could go on and on and on. Why then do we constantly find ourselves having to explain that museums are fundamentally education institutions with hands-on, inquiry-based learning at the heart of our missions? Why are we not at the table when education reform is discussed? Our education system is in peril. Schools are overcrowded, and many are dilapidated and closing. Of the 80% of high school students who graduate, less than half of those are able to proficiently read or complete math problems, and the majority of dropouts will be incarcerated. We're spending more money per year to incarcerate young people than to educate them. Our society is failing these kids. Museums can help. Our 2014 report, Building the Future of Education, explores signs that we are on the cusp of a new era in public education. One that AAM's futurist, Elizabeth Merritt, says is characterized by self-directed, experiential, distributed learning that is designed to foster 21st century skills. Museums are well suited to play a central role in this new era of education. We provide millions of opportunities for inquiry-based learning that reaches children, inspires their curiosity, and fuels their passions. And we are uniquely suited to better connect students' learning to their communities, to culture, to history, and to the world. We must simultaneously prepare for this new era, help others to imagine it, and work to make it a reality. I would suggest our future success as a field relies on our museums being networked into whole communities, what Elaine Gurian calls the interlocking role of museums with other citizens' institutions. AAM is going to start with the institution of education. Improving our public education system has long been a passion of mine, even before my daughter came into my life. But it's even more urgent for me now, personally, and it's urgent for our country. Our country's economic and societal woes are inextricably linked to what's happening to our young people. This is another urgent call to action we must heed. Thirdly, and critically, is the clarion call we hear every day from museums. We need funding. But with government stretched thin and changes in philanthropy, we will have to explore new models of doing business and ensure that museums are thought of not just as worthy investments, but essential investments at this time. On these three priorities, diversity and inclusion, education, and financial sustainability, we have our work cut out for us. I'm confident that we can begin to find solutions and find ways to put those solutions to work. We will examine other sectors of society for their successes. We will partner with other institutions focused on the same concerns. My hope is that at the end of this week's convening, you leave feeling both reinvigorated and a little incomplete. I want you to take back to your children's museums, your science center, your historic site, your art museums, the notion that our work is not yet done. There is much more to do. We must develop and maintain a sense of urgency about this work. There is no other group of people, no other network of institutions that can thrive and grow in the face of such challenges than all of us gathered here today. This is who we are. Museums celebrate human achievement and human triumph over struggle. We bring people together through encounters with real objects and living collections, through stories, and through scholarship and knowledge. We are destinations for discovery and for fun. And we are safe, welcoming, and trusted places where diverse members of our community can engage in sometimes difficult conversations. That's all as it should be. As we work together on these challenges and opportunities for our field, we are not always going to agree, and that's okay. That's good, actually. We're not always going to succeed. That's okay too. But we are going to stay the course because we must. Our disagreements and struggles should be the currency of our conversations here and throughout the year. We will see them become our agreements and our triumphs. I look forward to working with you and on your behalf here in Washington and around the world as we soar into another year with a strong plan and intense focus. Thank you again and welcome. Thank you. Now, I'd like to introduce another one of my sheroes, Kaywin Feldman, the Duncan and Niven Macmillan Director and President of the Minneapolis Institute of Art. At the end of this meeting, Kaywin will end her term as board chair of the American Alliance of Museums. She leaves an indelible mark on the Alliance during a critical time of transition. During this time, Kaywin called on the board and on me to be bold. Kaywin's been a thoughtful leader in the board's planning process, a tough and supportive coach to a new CEO, and a knowledgeable advisor, always pushing for AAM to do better. Most of all, she's been a funny and compassionate friend on whom I can always call for candid advice, a sympathetic ear, and sometimes just a good laugh. Please help me welcome Kaywin Feldman.